Hello and welcome to today's guest webinar, What is Our Money Story and How Do We Tell It? Presented by Firespring with our guest presenter, Lori Jacobwith. So really quickly, my name is Julia Kerrigan. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator here at Firespring. So I am really lucky I get to help put on these webinars and meet incredible people like Lori and kind of work collaboratively to bring you these free educational webinars. And what we do at Firespring, we provide marketing, printing, websites, and strategic guidance to businesses all across the country and across the world. So we're also located in Lincoln, Nebraska, which we like to call the middle of everywhere instead of the middle of nowhere. So, and what we do here at Firespring is we leverage our people, products, and profits to do more good. And the way that we do this, you may think like, how can you do that with websites and printing? The way that we do it is through what we call our Power of Three program. So we use 1% of our profits, which is just like top line revenue. We donate it back to nonprofit organizations. And then 2% of our products, which is in kind donations with printing or websites, things like that. And then 3% of our people. So how we figure that one out is that each person here at Firespring, we are required to spend 8 hours a month, or basically one day a month, of our work hours volunteering somewhere. So everyone here at Firespring has a different organization that they volunteer with, which is really cool. So we get to be involved in lots of different ways in the community. And so we get really excited about that. And we like to just give you a quick orientation about who we are, just so you know who you're taking a webinar from, if that's your first one, if this is your first one with us. So we just get really excited about that. And speaking of excited, we are really excited to have Lori Jacobwith here joining us today as our guest webinar presenter. I am going to hold off on the bio and just kind of let us get right into it. So here's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's my pleasure to introduce and turn the presentation over to Lori Jacobwith. Hey, Lori.
Hello and good morning. I'm going to not show my screen for just a second. We had a little crash on the computer while you were doing all of those fun.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So my stress level just went up a little higher than normal. So hang on, folks, while I go ahead and start, and I will tell the switch screen. And now you should see the presentation. Are you seeing it, Julia?
It looks good.
All right. So welcome, everyone. And I want to say welcome to, there's a few Minnesota folks and friends on. I'm delighted that you are either listening live today or you will be listening maybe with your team later on. As Julia said, I like to ask you to stay in contact with me throughout the webinar. So I'll be asking you questions and you'll be asking me questions. So we'll keep happy contact through that question box. And the first question I have for you is, what is your title, your job title, and what city are you in? And while you're typing in, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I live here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have been a fan of Firespring and been to the center of everywhere in Lincoln a number of times, both at Cause Camp and just for other fun activities. I work to help organizations clearly state who they are, what they do, and cause people to want to give you more, whether that's time, money, advice. Did I say money? I really believe in the power of communication and what it is that we're saying that inspires people to do exactly what it is we want them to do. So my self-given titles are Master Storyteller and Fundraising Culture Change Expert. And today we have a whole lot of folks that have the Executive Director title on, and I love that. We also have communication staff, donor relations staff, major gift officers. Those of you who may have heard me speak before at a webinar or a live conference know that I believe in the power of words. I believe in the power of having fundraising ease and joy, because we're really talking about how we communicate versus how we raise the money. That's the difference I believe in. So what I do, as I said, is I help organizations craft powerful messages, whether that be for your website, your donate page, your fundraising event, the next one-on-one meeting that you'll have. And we do that truly through the power of storytelling. But what I want to tell you is when I was young, my parents asked me, of course, people asked me, what did I want to be when I grow up? And I tell folks my answers were kind of strange, probably for a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, but I told folks I wanted to help more people. I was a babysitter in our neighborhood and had 50 families I babysat for over the many years I was a babysitter, and I wanted to help everyone in Minnesota, so I told folks I wanted to be governor of Minnesota so I could help everyone. Or because I like to travel, I wanted to be a flight attendant. So I realized a number of years ago that I got the jobs wrong. I am doing exactly what I believed that I should be doing and that my gifts and talents were in support of. So I get to travel around the world, help organizations raise more money, really by telling one powerful story at a time. So thank you, folks, from California to North Carolina to Dallas to Canada. We've got folks from Ontario and Oregon, Vancouver. Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you for the work you do. And thank you for being open to listening to something that might just change how much money you raise forever. So the stories that I tell are about people, whether you are an environmental organization or an advocacy organization, educational, human service, whatever it is, you are having an end user of your work. When I lived in Phoenix for 5 years. The weather wasn't as nice in Phoenix as it is in Minneapolis. I moved back home a number of years ago. My first day on the job, I had a pile of notes, thank you notes from the mom of the little girl in the picture. Madison was 5 years old just before she had her eyes screened at her preschool by our volunteers at Prevent Blindness America. And Madison's mom, Paula, found that her daughter was blind. She had no vision in her left eye, but she didn't know, and the pediatrician hadn't found it. And so Paula said, I'll tell my story to anyone because I want you to have more resources. I want more children to have access to what you provided. So we did. We told a lot about Madison's story. Paula spoke often with me. Sometimes we brought Madison to donor meetings or potentially volunteer meetings. Can you imagine a 5 or 6 year old saying, thank you for taking our meeting? Thank you for listening to my story. But what we always did is we made sure to talk about what it takes to purchase one camera to do more vision screenings. So that was $2,500. And after we were telling the story of what was happening with Madison and really talking about our footprint, here I am, the CEO and president of 12 volunteers, 1 grant we'd received, and screening a very small footprint. But the more we talked about what it would take to screen more children, it took 6 to 8 volunteers per screening. It took at least 1 camera. People started to respond. They responded, frankly, to the face and the story of Madison and the story we told regularly. We updated folks. They would call and ask, how's her vision at her last checkup? You said at the meeting you came to, she was having another eye exam. Well, today she sees 20/10 in both eyes. She has perfect vision. Here's what happened, and this is what I want for you, and you can do this in the last quarter of this year. We went from 1 staff to 5. We were fortunate that we had lots of people wanting to volunteer with us and call the office and ask to be trained, and it was a full day training to learn how to be a screening volunteer. We grew our budget largely from individuals. I would say 90% of this 1.2 million came from individuals, but I'm more proud of what we were doing, and that was screening more than 25,000 children a year. So from there, I went to work at the Department of Ophthalmology, not a very sexy mission, but I'll tell you some stories about that as we go. Really, the truth is what happens when you share what I call your money story and your people story, people start to know how to insert themselves and help. So today we'll talk a bit about what is it to be successful in our organization, and maybe in our lives. What is your money story? How do you share your money story? And then you'll just make some plans and some promises to me about moving forward. So let's talk for just a moment about success. Tell me this, what do you believe is the most important thing in your day-to-day work? Type into the question box, what is the one thing, and you want to just use one word if you can. What is the most important thing? And I'll tell you what I believe it is. So we've got money, relationships, gratitude, listening, people, perseverance, connection. All right, Lynn. Nope, I'm sorry, it's Michelle. Michelle, you win the prize, and I'm ringing my bell. Yay. It is communication. It is what we say. It is how we say it. It is where we say it. It really, truly is. That is the basis of success with your spouse, your dog, your pet, your neighbors, your colleagues, for sure your volunteers and your financial supporters at your organization. Communication both externally and internally, Karen. So unfortunately, we have a bit of a failure to communicate here in the social sector. And so what I will remind you is donors will tell us when they do a survey things like what it is that causes us to stop giving. You don't ask enough. You ask too often. You don't spell my name right. You send me two of everything. I don't know what your new vision is now that you have a new CEO. I don't know what it costs or takes to do the work. I don't know what you did with my last gift. The through line there, folks, is we can change their perception through our communication. But it has to be clear. It has to be understandable. So more than 50%, as you probably know, more than 50% of our donors leave us for reasons that are connected to a failure to communicate. So really, the point is, how do we have people know what we want them to do, inspire them to do that, and not be yammering on about ourselves? And the point there is keep it as simple as possible. But I know after more than 35 years of helping organizations raise more than $350 million, the formula. And the formula is to educate our community, our supporters, about the impact of their previous gifts. Highlight the life of one person, that could be an end user, and regularly share your money story. So I was working yesterday with a research and education organization that happens to be a national organization based here in Minneapolis. And we started their coaching session with this nice document they'd sent me about how great they were and how wonderful their work is and all the areas they focus on. The paragraphs were 8 to 15, 20 sentences long, a lot of copy, no white space. And I told them I had fallen asleep before I'd finished the first paragraph. What it didn't talk to was me. It didn't tell me, previous supporter, what I'd already done and how their research actually helps me make choices about the house I might build, the carpet I might put in, the places I might shop to buy paint or other things to build my home or my building, my office, that have less toxicity, that are less, they're not bad for my body. They forgot that they have an end user. They figured out that they were just telling people how great they were, and so people would give. So I like to share this definition to remind you that we have the privilege of facilitating the reallocation of all of the financial resources around the world away from things that we fear and towards that which we love. Fundraising is truly fulfilling the aspirations of our supporters. So if fundraising is about funding the mission rather than something extra, distasteful, something we have to go do, like have an event and then go back and do the real work of the mission. But we rather blend both of those, the money and the impact that we're creating, then we're actually garnering interest, compassion, and the money will follow. So, your money story, I want to know, how comfortable are you talking about money? Just type in the words great, okay, or not good. How comfortable are you talking with others about giving money to your organization? Love that I'm getting some great, yay, and I'm getting a few okay. Nice. We've got some new categories. Fairly good, nervous, not good. All right. So thank you for being honest and just giving me a little snapshot view of where you're at. So Stacy, I'm going to answer that question, what the best way is to share what their gift did if it went to an endowment, by saying and reminding you that you are putting money into an endowment means you can take a portion out and you have an end user of those dollars. So the more you're able to gather to place into the endowment, the more you're building sustainability. So it helps one person like blank, and fill in the blank and tell us that story. So hopefully that helps a bit, Stacey. I'm going to have folks in the office at Firespring mark that question as answered, and let's talk a little bit about money. You know, we for sure worry about it, right? Some of us dream about having more. In some families, my parents for sure, when I was young, argued about it. It can be celebrated when there's a good day. It can be that we're working hard to save it, or we just simply bring it in and we spend it as fast as possible. Money was created so that we could transfer our goods and services. We actually designed money. We created money, but we happen to, I don't know if you feel like this, but we happen to give money this distasteful feeling. And especially if we're fundraisers, it sometimes feels as though we're begging. And what I'll tell you is the truth. If you feel bad talking about money, you're actually thinking about and talking about the wrong thing. What you want to talk about is how you make an impact, your organization, how I make an impact with my gift, and frankly, what is it that we can't do more of? If we're only talking about, we need your help, we need your money, then we're not actually shining a spotlight on fulfilling my aspirations as a donor. We're not shining that spotlight even on a face or a name or the reality of what I make happen when I support your organization, right? So what I want to talk to you about, one of my most favorite people that I follow in the world, who has been a mentor and a friend, and she's a philanthropist, she's a fundraiser herself, is Lynn Twist. And she's written the book, The Soul of Money. And from that, I teach the 3 toxic myths of scarcity that she mentions in that book. And the first, of course, is pretty simple. There's never enough. We're on this, hamster wheel of looking for more, looking for more, looking for more. When we do that, and we're trained to do that from a very young age. When I was in kindergarten, we played musical chairs, and if you didn't move your fanny fast enough, there was a chair that was pulled out, and you learned there's not enough. So I better find more, I better grab more, and we just don't focus on anything that's right in front of us. So now we've created this feeling. Some of us got up this morning thinking, I didn't get enough sleep last night. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough. There's not enough. So we're just feeling this frenzy. The second toxic myth that we believe is more is better. Now, I'll often show a garage filled with stuff when I talk about this toxic myth. Maybe some of you can think of your own garage. Mine is actually pretty tidy today. Not always, but today. One of the reasons I know that we focus on more is better in a way that sometimes has us forget who's already given is one of the fastest growing industries in our country, in the United States anyway. I don't know about Canada, but in the United States is storage. We buy and rent space to put our stuff. We for sure think that we have to have a lot more donors. And I will tell you, oftentimes, unless you have under 100 donors, you need to know the ones you have a lot better, because they could be doing more, they could be investing more, and they have more passion to share with you. And that will show up as money. And then, frankly, the last toxic myth, now that you're on the hamster wheel that goes round and round and round, and we're thinking that more is better, causing us to forget about the faces and the names of the folks that have given every year for the last 5, 10, 7, whatever it is years, or who've given at an amount that's substantial to them. We don't notice and spend time on exactly what we have right in front of us. Is we decide, that's just the way it is. Boys and Girls Club's going to raise all the money, or the church is going to get all the money, or my friend who works at the Children's Museum, they're going to have all the money. We're just going to always struggle, and we just don't know how to get out of that hamster wheel. What I'll ask you to think about and pause for a second and be aware of is you can find evidence for anything you look for. So if I go to your website, which I went to a few of them before we started here, and I see a lot of copy and not a lot of image or language that's inspiring, or a face of someone who is your end user, or an amount that it takes to help one person, I'm pretty sure you don't need me, and I'll go somewhere else. Your website is like your kitchen in your house. You want there to be the most clear messages when I go to your homepage, even if it's that your homepage is for users of your services as well as for supporters and donors. I believe we can choose to believe in these toxic myths, or we can decide the reality is we're going to look for what's working today. Who's our favorite donor? Who's been giving the longest, and how can we ask them and highlight what their passion is and why they've been giving so long? And how do we insert some of what it takes to do our work, which is what I call your money story, into everything we do? So part of it is, what words are you choosing? What do you say to yourself? What do you say to others? What do you say day to day? So internal, external. We often use very utilitarian, very uninspiring communication. These are not pretty boots, but they're really sturdy, right? So we use words like donate, attend, help us, give more, give again. Uninspiring. I would like you to use words like invest, make an impact. Would you like to see your impact? Let me tell you who your gift will help. And frankly, rather than asking people to give more and give again, remind me you're looking for long-term partners, that it takes more work. That's why you have case managers. That's why you have programs to follow other programs for some of the folks that you're serving, or another research project, or another outing to learn more about the birds that are migrating or that we're losing in our environment. You're looking for long-term partners. And then the stealth conversation, the word choices that we make, can be very scarcity-based. It's really hard to explain what we do. Oh gosh, we can't ask people for any more. There's donor fatigue. We can't do that. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough people. And people won't do what we ask them to do. I serve on the board of an organization that has a 3/4 time person. She is the program manager, the founder, board chair, and the main voice and leader of the organization isn't being paid. But we are working on raising $100,000 between now and year end. And we're doing it by not saying some of these words. We're taking the time to, maybe it's 5 minutes, to figure out what can we say so we can say to folks, we're learning to explain to you as a new organization who we are and what your impact will be. It's our job to inspire you. So let us tell you about one person whose life is different or will be different when we are fully funded this year. And together, what if we could end homelessness, feed everyone, have enough information available to folks, provide an advocate for everyone that needs one, provide a casa, provide a mentor. We're looking for the very right people who would be our long-term partners. Doesn't that feel more welcoming? We're looking for the very right people who want to be our long-term partners. Folks, I promise you, you're not looking for every single person on the planet to be your donor, your volunteer, or your board member. You're only looking for the people. You're on a fishing expedition for the people who will make a gift because you are their passion. Not everyone will give to you, but maybe you have donors that give to 4, 5, 6 different organizations, and you're one of their top 3 or 4. As you go into copywriting season for your fall appeal, for your social media posts, any language you have on your website, please think about this. The 5 most disengaging words in fundraising are, help us with our goal. I will tell you the truth. I put my caring truth teller hat on before I jumped on the webinar here with Julia, and no one cares about your goal but you. You want to make sure that you're telling me, here's what we've done with the impact you've already made, and here's what we will be doing when we have more resources. I like, Lorraine, that your tagline is not a donation, it's an investment. And then I would want to make sure that you are putting a face with that investment. And here's what your investment looks like. All right, so hang on, Megan. Tips for advocacy groups that don't provide a direct service. You can't provide a specific amount that impacts a specific individual. You bet you can. So tell me what your organization is just in the next comment, and then I'll help you with it. So let me talk a little bit about different money stories for just a minute while Megan's typing in. You've got major gift donor or any donor money stories. You've got your executive director money story, and I hope this doesn't look like any of you at the end of the day. You've got board chair money stories. You've got your finance or treasurer money story. You've got program staff. You've got your fundraising department or committee. You've got, frankly, your own money story. It wasn't until I realized that I had some conversations around scarcity and lack about money in my life that I was able to remove those and realize what I'm really talking about is how does money make an impact or make a difference for others. Let's see. So, and Megan, did you give me your organization? I've got a couple of others that have mentioned their organization. All right, so public transit advocates working to build public support to pass a ballot measure to fund more bus and train lines. All right, folks on this webinar, type in who is Megan's end user? Who will her work specifically help? And it is the commuter. It is any transit user. Yep. So you get to do messy math, Megan. And that messy math is take your entire budget divided by what are the number of ballot measures or projects that you're working on, and tell us what it'll cost per person. And it might be a lot. It might be $1 million to help one person. But you can explain to me that that one person, their ride is different. Oh, I love it, Sam. Sports fans who use public transit to get to the sports arena. You could also divide it by the number of people who use public transit, and then your dollar amount is going to get smaller. So use messy math, unless that person is really, really wanting to know your financials, in which case then add them to your finance committee. Use messy math to explain here's approximately what we do. So let's get into money story. What if there's one money story every single person can agree on, or at least I hope they can in your organization? And that is the gap between where you are today and where you have to be at the end of this calendar year, even if it's not your fiscal year. Where do you have to be between now and this calendar year, that gap, so that you can do your work and fund your mission powerfully and pass more laws or advocate for more laws to be passed or to help more children, adults, frail elderly, It's really truly, where are we today and where do we have to be? This is the graphic that an organization here in Minneapolis used, Upstream Arts, when they put in their newsletter. We're going to start talking about our funding gap. And we want you all to know this looks like this. Here's where we are and here's where we have to be. They went from raising $23,000 from individuals to over $100,000 by putting the visual first and then starting to talk about people. So the gap is where you are today and reaching your annual fundraising goal. And then I add a nice little spin to it. Your visionary fundraising goal, your forward-thinking fundraising goal, is the amount it will truly take to do your work. So that could be, as the organization I talked to yesterday that does research on toxicity of products, their goal, fundraising goal this year, is to be just about a $2 million organization. But I asked Gina, the CEO, what would it really take and what's her visionary goal? And she said, really, Lori, it's $5 million. We could do so much more. We could do this and this. I said, all right. So you can say, before year end, we're looking to do projects that will take about $75,000. That's what we have left this year to get to our $2 million. But frankly, we have to get to 5. That's what it'll take to do our work powerfully. So let me tell you about one person whose life is different because they now know the level of lead in the paint in their child's bedroom or whatever the story is. So I'm giving you permission. Your parents might not have, your board might not have, you might not have, but I'm giving you permission to talk about the money. But the way you talk about the money is in a way that will inspire me. So you want to talk about the money, please, because the more you talk about it, the more you will raise. So to share your money story, you have to put a face on what I make possible. You may not have a picture, or you might ask to use a picture from the Transit Authority of all the sports fans loading onto public transportation before the next sporting event or something that they've got on their Facebook page. If you have confidentiality issues, you can use a silhouette like I've chosen here. You can tell us about a person that helps me understand who your end user is. So this is an organization that provides tax preparation for people. Actually, this is literacy. It is not tax preparation. I changed the picture on the slide last week. This is a literacy organization. And this person, this gentleman, learned how to read so he could become a truck driver, so he could take care of his family. So what did it take to make that happen? What was the dollar amount? So we put a face, but that is our mission moment. That is the short inspirational example of how your organization is making an impact. This is the Lycombe County SPCA. They spay and neuter pets. You might think there's not a real person, but you betcha there is. There's an end user to that pet that is going to care for it and have this now pet that has been spayed and neutered, and we're teaching the community why this is a good idea. So it can be a real person with a real name, but it might be a story that we're changing the details about to keep that person confidential. Or if we really truly do not know someone, we are going to tell about who we think that person is. I'm going to talk about Travis, who went to the Twins game and got his heart broken on Monday evening, and sadly had to ride the public transportation home, crying in his already drunk beer because we lost the game. Sympathy is an emotion I do not want you to be evoking in your mission moment stories or your money story. Sympathy creates distance. I feel sorry for you that you don't have your ducks in a row, that you haven't figured out how to raise the money already. I want you to create empathy. Empathy is what creates a connection. I get to see myself in that example you've painted. Empathy in your mission moment creates unforgettable connections because I see and feel what it is you're doing at a different level. So think about the stories that you share, the people stories that you share. Are they teaching me something about your work? Are they inspiring me in some way? And are they inviting a next action? If it looks like when I go to your website that you don't need anything, you look handled, you're all good, you've got a nice building, you've got a beautiful site, which if you work with FireSpring, you do have a beautiful site. I don't think you need me. People go elsewhere. So with a picture and a dollar amount, you can say, here's what it takes to make a difference in the life of one person, in our community, in your neighborhood, in your family. We want to be there for you or them when and if you ever need us. So how do you figure out your visionary money story? What or how many are you saying no to? Where have you cut to the bone? What could you have been doing more of? What will all of that cost? I did what I call an action planning session with the Historical Society in southern Minnesota, an entire county historical society just over the last weekend. And we answered these questions. What are we saying no to? Where have we cut to the bone? And what could we be doing more of? And they realized that their $200,000 annual budget does not have any growth built into it. So they can't talk about closing that gap by year end. They need and want to talk about what it will truly take to show more of our collection, have our museum open longer hours, have a development staff who can help us keep track of all of our awesome donors and volunteers. It will cost at least another $250,000. So next year, we'll be looking to raise double what we did this year. That's their visionary money story. Our job is to invite money to stop by for a visit before it goes and makes an impact somewhere else. We don't want to hoard it. We want it to stop by and make an impact that's exciting and interesting and powerful and helpful and hopeful and healing. So how many of you know yes or no? I understand yes, exactly where we are in our fundraising as of October 2019 and what is left to raise. Or no, I do not understand. Yes, you do, or no, you don't know what the exact number is. And I want to know the exact number. Like, do you know the cents, the dollars and cents? It looks like 50-50. Stacy, so what I want to know is, do you know today, October 9th, how much you have to raise between now and December 31st to stay on track with your fundraising? 50.6 million by year end, Alka, or is that the entire campaign goal? So it's okay if you don't, but you want to know, oh, I love it, Diana. You want to know both answers, both the day-to-day annual fundraising gap and the vision, that visionary gap. Stacy says, no, give me all you can, or no, get me all you can. Well, okay, but I need to know how much, because I want to know what I could potentially do. And some people can do more than others. Your money story has to be shared regularly. It has to have me understand that you say no to things. You've got small office space. My first office was in the closet of the hospital in downtown Phoenix. And I had to talk about the hidden cost of running our organization, Prevent Blindness America, was probably over $1,000 a month rent that we weren't paying. So we started to raise more money because we shared powerful stories and we talked about what was missing. So clear money stories talk about how you help one person, how you show the progress to the next milestone, how you inform what it takes to do your work, and it has some inspirational words, some specific relationship building language. You want to continually inspire giving. That's part of what we are doing, right? To do that, we have to share our money story as if it's a useful tool, not a necessary evil or a dreaded topic. You want it to be an exciting topic that people call and ask about. What are the possibilities for what we could do when we have more? So the steps to taking your work and turning it into a mission moment are identify one person or create a person based on a compilation of what you know about your impact. Then jot down what you know about them or tell us what you think, name, age. They have to have a name. They have to have an age. 17 is different than 75. 7 is different than 17. What are the specifics that you know about this person? What's their conflict? Conflict is the oxygen in your story. They can't get from point A to point B because of transit, doesn't come to their area, or there's not enough stops, or they don't have an adult male in their life and they need a mentor, an adult male mentor. And frankly, you have more women who offer to be mentors than men. So then, once we know what the conflict is, write down the exact results that happen. And these are measured. We can tell that now this person has been paired with a mentor. We've been able to pass that bill that will allow for more transits to outlying areas. That's the measurable result. But then you also want to talk about what are the transformations, the things that you can't measure. How does it feel to have your organization doing this work? We use adjectives to describe transformations. They are not measurable. So you want to make sure that the words you're choosing, some of those are those inspirational words we talked about earlier, and the placement of them is really key. Does someone have explosive energy? That could be good or bad energy. Are they cautiously hopeful? Do they have gnarled hands? Are they uncomfortably shy? They don't just smile, they smile from ear to ear. You serve the precious and vulnerable. Think about what your word might be to talk about your work in an emotionally connecting way. And then, frankly, you're going to put this into a framework, a really simple framework. Share your story. What was life like before? What's life like today now that they're within our midst and we can wrap our arms around them, or we can herald this project through the legislature? Use social media. Use speaking. Spoken word is really important. But then share it often and talk about what will happen in the future. So what you're missing, there's a need that exists because you're missing something. You require something. But I am not a fan of using the word need. Remember, we don't care what you need. We care about how we can make an impact. Need conveys duty and obligation. What's missing allows me to feel like, oh, I can see where I could fit in if this is my mission too. For multi-service organizations, Cheryl, you want to ask for unrestricted operating dollars and remind people, thank you for trusting and knowing that we will put your investment, your contribution to where it is most needed. Thank you for trusting us to do that for the last 20, 30, 100 years. All right. Here's an example of an organization that is an arts organization. They talked about, this is the California Symphony, a couple of years ago, they used this infographic along with their mail appeal, their online, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all of their online messaging, talked about what, 50, 100, 250, 500, $1,000. Notice there's no faces, but there's cool graphics. And there's explanation that $500 provides tuition for one sound mind students for a full semester. And then they talked about what $2,500 and $5,000 and $10,000 and $20,000 will do. And they have a double your impact matching gift. This campaign was an extraordinary success for them because it allowed people to know exactly what their dollars would do. And I love that they didn't use real people, but they told stories about real people when they talked about this verbally. The folks at Charity Water do an incredible job of putting a face to my impact. And when I visit their site, I know exactly what the pain point is. Remember, the oxygen in your story is the conflict, and the conflict here is 1 in 10 people lack access to clean water. We're on a mission to change that. Here's how. And when I join the spring, I will be one of the people who gets to celebrate every person on the planet who has access to clean water, and the spring is their monthly donor program. Share updates on your next milestone. Tell me how I'm doing. This one, it says reaching our goal. I would say you're getting closer. You're nearly fully funding a new round home for girls in the Philippines. That's the little language edits I might make. When you send out an invitation for an event, use language that's inspiring. This was from Free Arts here in Minneapolis. But on the other side, it talked about what it took to serve one child. And then Bread for Israel, really simple when you go to their website. Who eats today? Give now. Help ensure that families in Israel don't have to make this devastating choice. So does this work? You betcha it does. I don't care what the mission is. I will tell you many stories, but today I have only time to tell you a little one, a short one. This is both the staff and some donors from the Iowa Heartland Habitat for Humanity. They've been telling their money story for about the last year and a half. When I worked with them at the very beginning, about 3% of their revenue came from individual donors. They were not telling people in money stories. They started to talk about what it takes to purchase the appliances for one new Habitat home. And thanks to the partnership that they have with Lowe's and GE and other companies, it's $987. They started getting checks for $987. And then they started talking about what it takes to build one home. Every time they have volunteers on site, every time they do a home dedication. And on a Monday afternoon last spring, that check that you see there was just a visit that the Community Foundation stopped by to drop off that check for $150,000 of unsolicited support. Just 2 weeks ago, Allie, the woman on the right with the long brown hair, called to say, Lori, I can't believe this happened. You said it would, but we just got word that we are receiving an $800,000 grant for 3 years from our Community Foundation, and they've matched it with a new entity in our community. We are receiving a $1.6 million 3-year grant, and our annual budget is just $2.2 million. Where do I start? Who do I hire? What do I do next? And then this organization, the Lowell Community Health Center, had 0 donors when they started, but they did what I've just explained to you in this session to do. They told people stories and money stories, and they renovated a 100,000 square foot, 100-year-old mill and raised $5 million in just over 2 years. So what I'd like to share with you is there's a checklist I've created on what should we know about our money story. What's our major donor money story? What's our board chair money story? What's my money story? And then what are some things we should be thinking about in sharing a clear money story? And how do we continually inspire inspiration? You can download those from the bit.ly link. Just know that bit.ly link is case sensitive. So the M, the S, and the F are capitalized, but you have to have bit.ly in there. On the back side of that checklist is an action planning document. Choose one area of your communication. Set a measurable target for it. What's a measurable target? We are going to share 75 times our money story to increase gift size by December 31st. And organizations that have talked about what it takes to do their work, and that it's $150 per person to do their work, and that's a higher amount than their average gift. Their average gift was like $97. They increased their giving exponentially because people gave it the larger dollar amount. Figure out what are the details. How do we do this? Who are the partners, internal and external, that we have to do? Just choose one area to focus on. That's how you'll unpack this webinar session with your team. All right, so there's more questions. Let me go back to the URL for a moment. There's the URL, and I'm sure that FireSpring will send it out afterwards. And can I explain a measurable target? For sure. So let's go back up to see some of the organizations that said they were on the session with us here. As we now know, we could be talking about nurse, volunteer, and I want to learn how to tell the campus story and create a legacy fund for the camp. Okay, the camp's legacy story. So the reality is something measurable might be our action is to share our money story. Our measurable target might be how many times. or at what uh, we might decide we're going to share our money story at an amount that's 5% higher than we've been talking about what we need to raise. And by when will we do that? And how many times might we measure that we're doing that? So if we don't measure what our activity is, whether we're losing weight or learning to run a marathon or whatever, we do not make progress. Hopefully that helps. Your question is a great one, though, about what are we measuring? Measure something specific. I love this quote from Aristotle: all communication must lead to change. We're talking about not just what we've done and how great we are, we're putting our listeners, our donors, our volunteers, our community into the conversation, into the words that we're choosing and we're using. So I'll look again over the questions to see if I've missed any. And I'd like you to answer, what is one thing that you've learned and what is something that you'll do differently? And the measurable target is really simple. It's what can you measure to meet the goal that you're setting. You want to focus on sharing your money story and or your people stories. How many? At what amount? What's your visionary money story? We're going to share that. Actually, maybe you're going to figure out what your visionary money story is. And you're going to share that 150 times between now and year end. And then the process is, there's a by when, but there's a process of who's going to help, how will it look, will it be on our website, will we talk about it at board meetings? All right. Could how our alumni are making a difference in the world be a money story for our high school? Absolutely, Elaine. I work with a school right now, and we talk about both alumni and what some of the dreams are of some of the students that are getting ready to graduate, and how making an impact by making a contribution helps those dreams become reality. Here's some things you learned. Empathy creates connections. You figured out how to share a money story and more people stories using infographics. Love it, Shar, and hello. Be more intentional about perfecting our money story on individual visits. You bet. Do a better job of telling our money story on the website and your donate page. Understanding what our fundraising goal is and why. I'm new in the role and first executive director for a small nonprofit. I need to work on clarifying what our story is. Awesome. Encourage my colleagues to do the same. I feel more confident I can share a money story and people story. High five, Karen. I learned a bit about what words to use, and I'll tell more people stories. Yay, team. All right, you can stay in touch with me through social media. I write a blog every Wednesday. You can check on what it is today. There's a free download worksheet about the 7 steps to crafting a story. And really, just please go tell your money story to as many people as possible. And I think that I am turning it back over to the folks at the office.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lori. I am just thrilled. I'm also I can read a couple questions here. Some people are also in awe, and I am as well. Definitely have a lot to take in and a lot to think about. So thank you so much for all of your insight and wisdom today. We really appreciate it.
You
And so,
bet.
yeah. And so before we close out today, everyone, I just want to let you know I can see there's still some coming through the questions panel. Lori and I will both get these questions. So if we didn't get to it here today, don't worry, we have those and we have your contact info so we can touch base with you if needed. So our mantra here at Firespring is to educate without expectations. And that's something we do by our free webinars and kind of going through these presentations. So for just a moment, I want to let you know that I'm educating with some expectations while we close out today. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and just tell you a little bit more about us here at Firespring. So one of the things that we've noticed here from a study from Nonprofit Hub is that 81% of nonprofit websites are designed for less than $1,000. And this is a result of always trying to do more with less. And this is something that at the time, of course, sounds wonderful to get a whole website before or for less than $1,000. But what we've found as the result of that is that the average nonprofit organization starts over on their website every 2 years. So, in the long run, that ROI of that $1,000 investment is actually adding up to be a lot more. And this easily happens with nonprofit organizations with high turnover sometimes, or changing roles and board of directors. Someone sets something up and it changes. So, we set out to solve that problem and help nonprofits along the way by creating what we call a turnover proof website solution. So we provide a content management system that's going to allow you and your organization to go in and make updates to your website and make those changes whenever you want and however you need. And the thing about that too is that anyone can go in from your organization and do this. All these websites are going to be mobile friendly, responsive web designs, so they'll adjust to any device that they're being viewed on. It comes equipped with all the tools that nonprofits need too. So, like email marketing automation is going to be tied into your dashboard. You're going to have event registration capabilities on all of your websites as well. You have blog tools and news feeds available to you, landing pages for those donations and for making that ask to your supporters. Search engine optimization is also possible on these websites, so you can go in and adjust your pages to make sure that they're optimized for Google and for the internet. And then, of course, fundraising campaigns with those recurring donations so that you can increase your giving monthly instead of just once in a while. And all of this is backed by our legendary support and training team. So this is one of the main reasons why we have turnover proof websites, is because our team here will train anybody in your organization to use these websites, or maybe you're going on vacation, you need someone else as a part of your organization or office to come in and make those adjustments. We're here to help them make those changes as well. So you can always call us and ask us for help along the way. And then we do a lot here at Firespring. We wear a lot of hats. So if any of these things are things that you're looking for or looking for help with, you can always give us a call. We're here for you for those. And we like to extend a special offer to those of you who come to our free webinars. We're so thrilled that you're here to join us. And if you've been thinking about a website for a while and maybe want to kind of take a test drive on it, you can go to firespring.com/demo and take a test drive there and see if that's something that would work for you and work for your organization. And if you do sign up by the end of the year, we'll give you a special deal. So you get about 3 months without any monthly fees, which is an awesome deal. And of course, my plug is that I hope you'll keep learning with us. We love to do these free webinars, and we love to have amazing guests like Lori come on. So we hope that you'll check out our calendar, firespring.com/webinars, and stay in touch with us and let us know what kind of webinars you're wanting to see. And since we did Q&A, I'm going to just skip over that one, but a survey is going to pop up at the very end of the session today, and that'll be your chance to kind of let us know how we did today, maybe how we're doing in general, and if you have more topics that you'd like us to showcase for these webinars or for education, or if you have any last questions, that'll pop up at the end, so please fill that out. It'll take you 20 seconds at most, and I would love to read those results from you. So that's really all I have. So I just want to extend another huge thank you to Lori for joining us today and for presenting that great webinar. Lori, do you have anything else that you want to say before we head out today?
Really just thank you to everyone. And if you do have questions that we didn't get to, I see one from Amy, reach out to me. I've got a form on my website, or let the folks at Firespring know that you've got a hot burning question, and we'll figure out a way to get you an answer.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Lori. I hope that you all have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in another webinar soon. Take care.